Hi guys, this is Martin for Revelation Software and welcome to another video in my series looking at getting started with OpenInsight. And the subject for today is going to be creating menus within O4W, OpenInsight for the web. Now, if we were just going to do a menu, this video just would not be worth doing. It takes seconds. You could go and make yourself a cup of tea, you could put the kettle on, you could come back to the machine and you'd have missed the video. So to make it worthwhile, what I think we'll do is we'll just have a look at the interface. So I've got my engine server running, I've got my web server running, so let's go and run up the clinic shortcut that we created before and we'll log into our application. Okay, so this gives us the main interface that we get when we first log in. It gives you access to all of the functionality within the toolset. So at the very top here you've got the ability to log in and log out. You then have the ability to create and modify, copy, delete and run any menus. The same for forms, and the additional item in here is that we can modify the layout by dragging things around, and we can go in and we can print out some documentation for the form. We've got similar for the reporter, so create, modify, document, copy and delete, and also for the dashboards. So these are charts that we can create within O4W. We can create and modify those, copy, delete, and we can run those. There's also an area here for procedures. Now, we're not going to be looking at the procedures within the tutorial because that involves creating code and we really don't want to go there. Everything we want to do is going to be setting the parameters and doing things without code. But in here I can create and modify procedures, I can register procedures, I can copy and delete them, and I can run them. Now if I just go into one of these, the commuter module that we create, or I created earlier, for the application before I started recording these was the MP patient. So if we just run that and we go into edit, then you can see the code that O4W created and maintains as we're building the form and modifying the form. And you could edit that in here and you could save it and compile it and do everything you would normally. But to be honest, I would drop into the system editor in OpenInsight and do it in there because it is a much nicer editor. But if you haven't got access to the desktop tools and you want to build your application online purely in the browser, then all of the tools are here to enable you to do that. Now, one of the other areas that I want to have a look at is the database management. There are two areas: the OpenInsight maintenance, which gives you three options: applications, tables and procedures. Applications purely gives you the ability to view all of the applications that are in your copy of OpenInsight. So you can see our clinic application here, or I could go in and type a new application and create it. So I could start a complete fresh application from within this interface. I can also view the tables within my copy of OpenInsight. So you can see I've got 24 pages. We'll jump to page 13. I can't remember exactly which page I need. And there you can see that we've got our MP patient table that we've been working with. We can create new tables. We can look at all of the attached tables by volume or directory. We can detach tables. Like I said, create new tables. Look at the dictionary items and modify those. So if I was to go into MP patient and go, then you can see all of the column items, all of the details, and also any calculated columns and details, and I can add as well. So you've got full access to all of the database tools from within this particular interface, including indices. Now you could, if you wanted to, create them within the desktop application and maintain them there, or you could do it here, or a mixture of both. It's entirely up to you. The last option on here is procedures. Now we did look at one of those just a moment ago, so it's exactly the same. We get access to all of the procedures, and we can go in and we can edit those from that particular menu item. O4W maintenance gives us access to user maintenance, permissions, messages and configuration. Now for user maintenance, I've just got a couple of users set up in here at the moment. When you come to do this, you'll probably just have the O4W, but creating a new one is simply a case of clicking the add button, and I'll have a user called Martin. We'll have a password of Martin as well, and I could set a permissions level if I wanted to in here, if I wish. So number 1. We'll save that away. Record has been updated, and then you can see that we've got the 3 users in the system. There is also the message file where there are system messages. Again, we're not going to play with this during this tutorial, and if you want more information about that, then I would suggest covering that within the O4W training. But one area that I do want to look at is the configuration records. Now there's a number of tabs on this particular window. The first is system routines, and you normally wouldn't want to play around with this unless you want to override the behavior that is built into O4W. We're going to be using these, so let's leave that well alone and move on to the scripts. This is information about the scripts that are being used, so the source for the jQuery, the Ajax jQuery version, and a number of scripts, standard scripts that are within O4W. But one of the areas that is quite interesting here is the jQuery theme. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of jQuery themes that are available to you. I'm running smoothness at the moment, but you can very quickly change that. So if I change it to start, you'll see that I've now got different buttons, and if I was to run my form, then it would give me these buttons rather than the smoothness buttons that we had earlier on. I'm going to stick with smoothness for now. If we go into tables, then you can see the temporary work table and the cache table. And the templates and menus is where you'd set your default templates. Now we're going to be working with the default O4W templates, but I could quite easily change that to be the Rev template or any of my own templates. There are a number in there. I also have the ability to set the behavior for my scrolling menus and the like, and again I'm just going to stay with the default being horizontal, 200, 400, etc. Standard codes. There are a number of standard codes that are provided in O4W. At the present time you've got US states, countries of the world, true, false, yes, no, male, female, etc. And there is the ability to create your own if you wish. We're actually going to cover how to populate combo boxes in a slightly different way, but this list will probably be growing over time. Forms and reports gives you access to allow dynamic reports and forms, and then permission levels, etc. And finally, browsers. Now O4W, as I said earlier in the previous lesson, is a Web 2 technology built on Ajax. Therefore we do require functionality in latest browsers. So here we can define the minimum versions of Internet Explorer 8, minimum versions of Firefox, Google. We can add different browsers that we're going to support, and then we can display a warning message for any unsupported browsers, and that appears at the top of our window. Now the reason why this is in here is the version of browser that you can support within your application is going to depend on the functionality within your application and whether that is supported by the current browser. So if you do something relatively simple, then you could support a much older browser. But if you want to use some of the advanced Web 2 features within your application, then things might get a little bit different and you might need to restrict the supported browsers to some of the later ones. So as with everything on the web, it's a case of pulling down all the different versions of the browsers, keeping them available to you, modify, test, modify, test, modify, test, and work out which browsers that you can support within your application. We're going to see the creation of menus, forms, reports, etc. over the course of the next few videos, so I'm not going to look at those menu items in too much detail at this precise moment in time, but what we will do is we'll go ahead in the menu, we're going to create or modify a new menu. Now what I've done is to clear out my OpenInsight, so for the moment it's pretty much the same as yours. I've got no O4W menus or reports or anything in here. Everything I did previously has been blown away. So what we'll do is we'll enter in the new name for our report, and on this one we're just going to simply call this mp_main menu. You can see that I've got some items popping up from what I did previously because these are cached away, and I've got two in here. I've got one lowercase and one uppercase. Now within O4W all of these entity names need to be uppercase, but if you put them in as lowercase and we go to create the menu, you get a little alert to come up. The O4W menu name you entered is invalid and has been modified. Please review it before proceeding. The reason it's invalid is it needs to be in uppercase, and O4W kindly converts that for us. So then again we can do the go button now, and then we can go into the main window to design our menu. I can pick a default template. Now the one I'm going to stick with is the default. Happy with that one. And we can add a description for our menu. So this is going to be our main patient menu, that one there, and we can set permissions if we want to. So none, administrator, designer, level 10. These are the permission levels that we defined in the configuration window, or we didn't because we didn't change any, but if we had then they would be in here. I'm happy to leave this as none at the moment. Then we have a number of types of menu items. We can have none, a menu, a submenu, or a menu item. So the first one we're going to have is going to be a menu, and the text that we'll have for that is going to be data entry forms. Nice and easy. There's no link type because obviously this is going to have the submenus underneath and we're not going to link it to or anything like that. And again we could change the permissions at the item level if we want to. However, we do want to have a menu item. I'm not going to have any submenus here, we just have a menu item. And this particular menu item is going to be patients. The link type is going to be to an OpenInsight form. And this is where we get to the chicken and the egg situation. Do you create your menus first or do you create your forms first? I need to have the form created to link it here. But then when I'm designing my forms, I need to have the menu defined to link the menu to the forms. So which do you do first? It's personal preference. I prefer to do the menu first because I can define all of my menu items, and I'll just have this as linking to the message management. I could pick any of the default windows in here. Because what I'm going to do is, as I'm building the forms, I will add this menu to those forms. And then when I've created 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 forms, however many, and reports, etc., I can then come back to the one menu item and then link that one menu item to all the different forms, rather than have to remember to go in and launch this window and this window and this window and this report and that report and the other report, which could become a little bit more difficult. So for the moment we're just really doing a placeholder menu, which is not going to be overly functional. We'll come back and fix that up when we've actually got our forms created. So I want to have a second menu item, and this particular one we're going to call appointments. And I won't worry about any of these other prompts for the moment. As I said, we'll come back to those in a few minutes. The next item, we want to have a menu, and these are going to be our reports. And then we want to have a menu item, and the first one is going to be the patient listing. And again, I can't add the report because I haven't got the report created, so we'll leave that blank. If I want to add a new one, I can hit the insert button. Now the only issue that I don't really like is it inserts it before, and I might want to have my patient listing in first. So let's just change that back to patient listing, and this one will change to the appointment diary. And that's pretty much done. If we just save that, and we can press here to test run that menu, then we can see our menu working. So we can see our data entry forms, patients and appointments. Again, we can't run these. I could click on patients, but that's going to go away and run one of the system forms, this one here. So we know it's working, it's just pulling the wrong form in. So we can see appointments as well down there. That's not going to do anything. We click it because we haven't defined any behavior. And under reports, we've got our appointment diary. And we've actually gone wrong somewhere. So let's just go back. Menu, create and modify. Let's just select that main menu. Go. Okay, it looks like we didn't save those changes, so if we insert into here the patient listing, and we want to set that to a menu item, which I think is the thing that I forgot to do previously, and we'll save that away. You can see how quick and easy it is just to go back and change things and test run them. It's the beautiful thing about OpenInsight, and as somebody that's not a developer or coder, it's really nice for me to be able to go back and just try something, change it, go back, try something, change it. So we've now got our patient listing and our appointment diary, and that's our menu ready to hook our windows up to in the next lesson. So like I said, nice and short. We had a look at the OpenInsight for web, the O4W interface. We looked at creating some users, permissions, where the templates are held, and we've created a very simple menu, but the menu that we need for our application. In the next lesson, we'll start to look at creating one of the forms for our application, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much for your time today. See you again. Bye bye.